England topped their World Cup group, but this was not the kind of performance that silences doubts. A 2-0 win over Panama should have felt comfortable. Jude Bellingham scored. Harry Kane made history. The three Lions finished top of Group L. But behind the scoreline, there was frustration, confusion, and one moment that left Thomas Tuchel with his head in his hands. Because while England eventually got the job done at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, their first half display raised serious questions. And one England star has now been accused of basically doing nothing. That player is Elliot Anderson. The 23-year-old midfielder, now at Manchester City after his record pound £116 million move from Nottingham Forest, has been singled out by CBS Sports pundit Mike Grella for a tactical role that, according to him, drained England of power in the middle of the pitch. So how did a 2-0 World Cup win turn into a debate about England's midfield structure? And why was Harry Kane, England's main goal threat, being dragged so deep that Panama's entire defensive shape was still in front of him? Let's break it down. England came into the match against Panama knowing the pressure was on. The three Lions were expected to control the game, dominate possession, and send a clear message after recent criticism of their performances. Instead, the first half was flat. Tuchel's side went into the dressing room at halftime, with the score still goalless. For a team full of Premier League quality and attacking talent, it was not the convincing display supporters wanted to see. Even more concerning, England's position at the top of Group L was under threat while Croatia and Ghana were still in the picture. Eventually, England found a way through. Jude Bellingham opened the scoring, giving Tuchel's side the breakthrough they desperately needed. Then Harry Kane added a historic second, becoming England's all-time record World Cup scorer. On paper, it was job done. England won 2-0. England topped the group. England moved forward. But performances at a World Cup are judged by more than just the final score. And after the match, Mike Grella turned his attention to Elliot Anderson. Speaking on CBS Sports Golazo, Grella focused on how Anderson repeatedly dropped deep between England's center backs. His argument was simple. By moving into that position, Anderson was not helping England progress the ball. Instead, he was taking himself out of the area where England needed power, movement, and aggression. Grella suggested that when Anderson moved back, England ended up with three players close together, passing sideways without pulling Panama out of shape. In his view, Panama were comfortable. Their forward could shift across without real pressure. Their midfielders were not being dragged out of position. Their center backs were able to step forward and help. And England, instead of breaking lines, were allowing Panama to stay organized. That was the heart of the criticism. Anderson was not accused of making one disastrous mistake. He was accused of not doing enough, not forcing the issue, not being aggressive enough in possession, not occupying the spaces where England needed him. Grella said England had to get players into the center circle areas and into the pockets between midfield and Panama's penalty area. But too often, according to him, Anderson was coming away from those areas and dropping between the center backs. For a midfielder in a game England were expected to control, that was a major problem. The most striking part of Grella's analysis was what it did to Harry Kane. Kane is England's captain, their record scorer, and the man expected to finish chances. But in the first half, Grella highlighted that Kane was being forced to come deep into midfield. That meant England's number 9 was receiving the ball far away from goal, with Panama's midfield line and defensive line still in front of him. Instead of being the final threat, Kane was being pulled into build-up play, and that is where the tactical frustration became visible. Grella claimed Tuchel even had his hands over his head as Kane dropped into those areas. It painted a clear picture. England's structure was not functioning the way it needed to. The midfield was not giving enough drive. The attack was becoming disconnected. And Kane, rather than staying high and dangerous, was having to search for the ball himself. Against Panama, with all due respect, England were expected to impose themselves. But for long stretches, they looked labored. The criticism of Anderson matters because it points to a wider issue for Tuchel. England have individual quality. They have Bellingham. They have Kane. They have players capable of deciding matches. But if the midfield balance is wrong, those stars can become isolated. If the build-up is too slow, opponents can stay compact. And if players drop deep without dragging defenders out of shape, England can look busy without actually being dangerous. That is why Grella's words cut so sharply. He did not simply say Anderson had a quiet game. He argued that Anderson's positioning actively took away England's midfield power. And when a midfielder drops between the center backs and basically does nothing, as Grella put it, the whole team can lose momentum. For Anderson, the spotlight is now intense. His £116 million move to Manchester City made him the most expensive British signing of all time. That price tag brings expectation, scrutiny, and pressure. At club level, he is now tied to one of the biggest teams in world football. At international level, he is trying to establish himself in an England side where competition is fierce and every performance is analyzed in detail. A World Cup group game can be a chance to make a statement. But against Panama, the post-match discussion was not about Anderson controlling midfield. It was about whether he left England short where they needed him most. In the end, England got what they needed. A 2-0 victory. Top spot in Group L. A breakthrough from Jude Bellingham. A record-breaking moment from Harry Kane. But this was not a performance without concern. The first half was uninspiring. The rhythm was poor. The midfield questions remain. And Elliot Anderson, one of England's most talked-about players, is now at the center of a tactical debate that Tuchel cannot ignore. Because winning is essential at a World Cup. But the deeper England go, the smaller the margins become. Against stronger opposition, slow build-up, disconnected midfield play, and Kane dropping too deep could become far more costly. Tuchel's side are through. But if England want to turn progress into a serious World Cup challenge, performances like this will not be enough. The scoreline says England are moving forward. The analysis says there is still plenty to fix.